Hey guys, this is JJ. This is going to be our first segment of Roll Talk, where we roll and we talk. This is Dave Thull. He's a black belt under Kleber. Actually, my first jiu-jitsu coach here in Fresno, California. We started training way back at 7th Generation. Oh, not 7th Generation. UFC gym.
Yeah.
We're here now at 7th Generation training once again. We probably hadn't seen each other in maybe 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, it was a long time.
Yeah, in between then. And then just somehow ended up meeting back together. So super cool dude, super athletic runner.
I remember when I first met you at UFC gym, somehow I think Bernard got brought up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, I know that dude. Like I trained with him for
Yeah.
a while. And
So he was my Native American Studies coach or teacher. Now he's my coach.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was my teacher, and then he actually came in as a brown belt one day and just fucked everyone up.
That's right, he did.
Yeah. I remember because he had long hair, and he kept whipping when I was rolling with him, and I was like tempted to I was like, don't touch it. Like even though I was a white belt and I had never fought someone with long hair, so I was like, what do I do with this whip? But yeah, interesting. Now I'm used to the whip. So yeah. So I'm just going to be going over some interview questions with Dave as we roll. It's going to be either a flow roll or a hardcore death roll. It's up to Dave, honestly.
We'll probably flow.
We can flow. We can get through the questions better with the flow, but for the future, if anyone wants to go hard on me, I'm totally up for it. It's my job to get through the questions. Your job to hopefully answer the questions, and if you submit me, you submit me. If I get you,
we'll see how many bow and arrows you catch me in today.
Let's see. He's got a weak shoulder, so I already know what I'm aiming for.
There you go.
Okay.
All right.
So, first question. What got you into jiu-jitsu?
So that's a really kind of funny story. I used to work in the movie theater industry. I was 18, working at this little 4-screen movie theater just as an usher, and there's this guy that him and I used to talk trash on each other all the time, just real friendly, And one day he was like, "Hey, there's this new cage fighting thing. You want to watch it? I'm gonna get it at my house. One of my friends is fighting." I was like, "All right," and go to his house, and I know he does a little bit of judo. I wasn't sure how good he was, but so I go to his house, and as I walk in, there's this room. And I kind of peeked in the door. There's all these trophies. I was like, man, this guy's a little bit better at judo than I think he's giving himself credit for. We watched the fight, and it was Oleg Tatarov versus Renzo Gracie.
Oh, yeah.
And so I see Renzo gets what I think is knocked down. Oleg Tatarov starts coming into him and he just pulls him into a triangle.
Okay.
I was like, what is that?
That was one of the first UFC events, right?
It wasn't even UFC. It was some Russian, I don't even know how he was streaming it back in the day.
Damn.
And I was like, what is that? And he's like, oh, that's jiu-jitsu. That's the next up and coming thing. You should check it out. And I was like, man, I might have to see what that is.
Interesting.
And at the time, he was like, well, hey, you play guitar. I want to learn guitar. I'll teach you some jiu-jitsu.
So you guys had a dope little trade-off.
We were supposed to, and it never happened.
Oh, no.
That guy was Dan Camarillo.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
What the hell?
So, he worked at the...
You worked with Dan Camarillo at the movie theater?
Yeah.
What the hell?
We used to just talk trash on each other. Then I see all these trophies. I'm like, maybe I shouldn't talk so much shit.
Yeah, dude.
And luckily, we were cool with each other.
And you thought he was just a judo guy?
Yeah. Well, at the time he was. He was just starting to train with his brother, with Thull.
Interesting.
And, so that was kind of my intro into this weird thing. And then years go by, nothing ever happens. And for some reason, I wanted to do martial arts. I think my nephew's doing karate. I asked one of the guys I worked with, I was like, hey, what do you think about jiu-jitsu? And he was a karate guy. He goes, oh, no, you don't want to roll around on the ground. You want to keep it standing. We went to his Shotokan school, and it's like, that looks kind of cool, but I don't know. Then one day I'm playing tennis with my buddy. I make a wrong turn getting gas, so I have to go through the back way to the gas station. And there's a jiu-jitsu school right there. He's like, man, I always wanted to check that out. This is years later. So I'm very introverted. It's hard for me to go and just do something like that. And I was like, you know what? I've always wanted to check this out. I'm gonna go see what it is. So went over it with his New Era Martial Arts at the time. It was a Hoist Gracie affiliate. Oh, you're trying to set up that bow and arrow already.
Not, I wasn't. I was. Now you got me the
You're
idea.
going to it. And yeah, so signed up, went in, and my first lesson was my instructor at the time, Tosh, and he goes, I want you to lay down. He gets mount. He goes, you have 5 minutes to get me off of you.
Oh shit.
And that was it. He goes, use a scenario, like maybe I'm trying to break into your car, but just do whatever you can to get me off of you. He was like, all right, 5 minutes go by. There's like no answer. I can't get this thing off of me. And I'm like, wow.
Fucking Tosh.
And he goes, let's reverse it. Hold me down for a minute. The dude stood up like 4 or 5 times.
Oh my gosh.
Like, so then he shows me how to get out of mount, you know. He's like, that's it? He's like,
So back then, you were pretty athletic though. You were running.
oh, no.
You weren't running
I
yet.
wasn't doing anything yet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I weighed about, my metabolism was still pretty fast. I weighed like maybe 155.
Oh
160.
shit. Yeah.
Had like no muscle mass. Then I started doing jiu-jitsu. It was like, I was the smallest guy at our gym. So I was just always on bottom. So it was like, I need to get my guard a lot stronger. So I started riding my bike quite a bit. And then from there, I think I still wasn't into running, but I was just riding a lot, trying to get my legs a little bit stronger. So I figured if my guard was strong, that's at least something, you know, because I'm stuck on my back all the time.
Yeah.
So then, yeah, that was kind of my intro. Then I just kind of
Dude, nice.
fell in love with it. I remember the first day I bought like 2 gis. I was like, man, this is like
Yeah,
the
dude.
coolest thing ever.
That feeling when you just want to grow.
Yeah, and that's where I met eventually Bernard and Steve, and all those guys that was all at that gym. So it's super fun to,
So was Steve always the owner
No,
of Red Lion, or no?
yeah, so that's Steve's last name.
Right,
Steve
right,
Riley, right?
right.
So when I started, I think Steve came in right after I got my blue belt. I got my blue belt in like, it was maybe 6 months. But I was training every class. We had open mat. So I'd, basically the gym was open from like 10 a.m. to, you know, probably 9 o'clock at night.
Interesting.
And if there was no class, the gym was just open. So this was before like really cell phones and stuff. We had a list of everyone's name and number
Oh,
on the
okay.
front desk and our work schedules. So
Nice.
then you're like, oh, it's Tuesday.
But that's how you know
It was
you
on.
really wanted to train and stuff.
Yeah. And everyone was like, you know, at the time, Tosh was a blue belt. I was a white belt. Oh, wow. We didn't have any blue belts in class. When I got my blue belt, he actually got his purple that day.
Oh shit.
But yeah, it was a pretty intense 6 months of just training every day, you know, and not really feeling like I was ready for it yet, but
Right.
he thought I was. And
Dude,
yeah,
nice. That's a dope ass intro because
Yeah.
jiu-jitsu is definitely just starting in Fresno.
yeah,
So
and you know, I didn't know. I'm still probably. I've never considered myself athletic, like gifted wise. It takes me so long to learn new technique, and you know, like you just have to kind of go with it, you know.
eventually it just starts folding, bro.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of how it all started. The running didn't start until well after that.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you, like, I always thought you were a runner like your whole life.
No, I didn't run until my late 20s. I was starting jiu-jitsu, and then there was one Thanksgiving where I worked at the movie theater. I never had holidays off. I was working in movie theaters doing projection work and stuff like that from age 18 to actually like my late, when I met you, I was still doing that stuff.
Yeah.
My late 30s.
You're
And,
a purple belt when I met you.
yeah, so never had holidays off, and there was one Thanksgiving. I was just trying to eat and get out of there. My sister was one who was into running, and she'd done the turkey trot 5K. And some of my family members are talking trash, like, oh, he could beat you in a 5K. I was like, I don't know how far that is. I don't know what a kilometer is. And so she's getting irritated. So she's like, you're going to run it with me next year. It's like, all right. So then one of the guys we used to train with, Jason Pritchard, he was into triathlon. So I asked him, hey, how far is the 5K? He's like, oh, it's 3 miles. It's like, okay, well, I'm going to run one next year. So I ran with my sister. I beat her by like maybe 30 seconds. She gets all pissed and she's like, we're doing the half marathon next year. So like, all right. So I asked Jason, how far is the half marathon? It's like 10 more miles than what you just did. It's like, shit, 10 more, you know.
Damn.
So
your sister's an experienced runner.
yeah, she's been doing marathons already. And so I started signing up for all the small local stuff. And we do that half marathon. I'm with her for like a mile and a half. Then she just starts pulling away, getting smaller and smaller.
Oh man.
And then all of a sudden, like, I can't even see her anymore. She's gone. That was the hardest race that I ever did. Was that
Really?
Yeah.
Your first race? Or your first 10?
My first half, yeah.
Shit.
13 miles. Out of all the 100 milers I did, that first half.
Killed you.
There's the point where I was like, and it was point to point.
Uh-huh.
Right, keep in mind there's like, you don't have cell phones yet really.
No.
You're not carrying them. I have like this little 128 megabyte MP3 player that runs off like a AAA battery.
You probably went through all the songs.
I had a bunch of old AFI albums on there. And at the point it was like, okay, I'm gonna run walk. I'm gonna walk one song, and it's AFI, so it's like cool.
Yeah.
2.5, 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Super fast tempo. I'd run one song, then I'd walk the next, and I got to the finish, and I was like, I was just done.
You're just done?
And my sister was like, hey, she'd been waiting for me. She's like, hey, good job. You want to get breakfast? I was like, yeah, where do you want to go? She's like, no, there's breakfast here.
Oh,
at the
shit.
race. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And I get home, I was like, God, that was horrible. Like, why would anyone want to do this?
Yeah.
And then, well, you're from jiu-jitsu, you get used to being stuck
In horrible
in horrible positions, almost like right now. And so I started thinking about more and more. I was like, what can I have done differently to make that a better situation? And then talked to my buddy Jason. He's like, well, you could change this in your training. And I did. It's funny because I work at a specialty run store now.
Yeah.
And I didn't know anything.
Fleet feet, right?
Yeah, I was wearing like my shoes that I played tennis in, cotton sweatpants, like everything we told people not to do. And like, hey, I know why you don't do that because I've done it,
Wait, why cotton sweatpants is a no?
Anything cotton absorbs moisture.
Oh,
So you wear your rash guard.
Yeah.
Is going to pull the moisture off and let it dry.
interesting.
So same thing with like socks, shirts.
So polyester is a little bit better.
That's the way to go. Yeah. Cotton
Interesting.
and then you get chafing because everything's rubbing.
Yeah, and it gets heavy.
Yeah, so like cotton socks you don't wear.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. And I was cool with that. I just didn't know any better.
Yeah.
And
First one, man.
yeah, and so I learned a lot about what to do and what not to do, and then stuck with half marathons for a long time. By a long time, probably a few years. Never had the urge to do a full. Had a bunch of jiu-jitsu friends that were like, oh, you should do a full,
Yeah.
I was like, no, I don't need to. And then when I was at the UFC gym, actually it used to be called LA Boxing.
Yes, that's what I was trying to remember the name.
And there was this dude there that was just toxic. And him and I didn't get along. He got my buddy fired. And then
Who was it?
this guy, Anthony.
What, did I know him?
No. But him and I ended up having a talk. I was like, hey, I know you don't like me. I don't really get along with you. If I need to, I'll leave. And he's like, oh, no, you're good. Then he ends up getting me fired.
Oh, that fucker.
But then I start teaching right away at another gym, just at this rock climbing gym.
Uh-huh.
I met this lady, Sarah, who was into marathon running. She had a training class that she was doing. And her husband approached me and was like, hey, she runs at night a lot or early morning by herself. I'd feel comfortable if you went running with her. It's like, I don't really want to run that far.
Yeah.
But she talked me into it and got me to train for my first
Nice.
marathon.
So it worked out.
Yeah.
For sure.
I got to still train jiu-jitsu. And I think at that time I was training with Steve too.
Uh-huh.
He was like starting to get his gym open. And I just still kind of want to do my own kind of thing and just kind of have fun. I always enjoy teaching. And
Yeah, dude, you were a really good teacher.
Thank you.
Dude, I remember if I had a bad coach my first session,
yeah,
only training 2 days or 3 days a week,
yeah.
I definitely would have come back.
Yeah.
I was so busy with school
Yeah.
and everything else. Dude, that was such a fun class.
Yeah. No, those were good times over there.
Nothing but white belts too.
Yeah,
So it was just
yeah.
easy for everyone to kind of learn.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because at one time, that Anthony dude, they eventually figured out that he was stealing, which we kind of warned, hey, this guy's gonna steal you blind. Like, no, he's a cool dude. Like,
Yeah.
no, he's not.
Yeah.
So I figured it out, and I was on a run at the park, and I ran into one of the old members, and she's like, hey, you should go reapply. I was like, no, I kind of said a few things on my way out. I won't be back in here.
Dude, yeah.
And, my buddy Trevor was teaching kickboxing over there. He calls me and goes, hey, I heard you ran into a couple members. They want you to come back. I was like, well, the members do, but I
Yeah.
don't think the owner's gonna want me to.
Yeah.
And it was really funny because at the time I'm training with Steve pretty exclusively. I think by then I got my purple belt, or I was about to, one of the two. And then I get a call from Trevor. He's like, "Hey, you want to come back?" I was like, "It'd be cool. I could teach like some kickboxing cardio classes, but I don't know about jujitsu." Kind of left a bad taste in my mouth for a little while. I kind of quit training for a little bit at one point. It was probably about a year and a half or two.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then yeah, you know, it's kind of on and off again. As long as you're on again, that's the important thing.
As long as you know you'll get on again.
Yeah, and then yeah, so they had a call from Trevor. They're like, "Dude, they're not gonna want me back over there." It was only like a couple calls, right? So he calls the owner, tells her, "Hey, he would maybe come back." So he calls me back. "What's it gonna take for you to come back over here?" They want to know is all just an apology.
Oh. Well,
Get a call within 5 minutes. "Hey, you were right about that dude.
Yeah.
We're sorry how it went."
Was that the guy with glasses who ran it, or was it the
No,
small Mexican guy? Hispanic guy.
No, so it was the lady who was there. I think when you got there, she actually sold off her share.
Okay.
Because it went from LA Boxing to UFC gym.
Oh, that's right. Okay,
I think-
so this wasn't during UFC gym.
No, this was during LA Boxing.
Gotcha.
I think while I was there, they made the transition because I think it was still LA Boxing when I went back.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, she called me up. She's like, "So sorry about what happened."
Yeah.
She's like, "What will it take for you to come back?" I was like, "That was it."
Yeah.
And she's like, "When do you want to come back?" I was like, "I'll be there." She called me like Saturday night. So I could be there on Monday.
Yeah.
I'll teach a Monday morning class. She's like, and no one wanted to teach in the morning. I got stuck with
You.
all the 6 a.m. classes because no one wanted to wake up. I
Is
was
that
like,
what got you into teaching morning classes?
yeah, because I'm not a morning person at all. Like I fucking hate waking up early.
Interesting.
But
But you do like every day.
I know, right? It's like just kind of get in that role. And you know, if there was no one that wanted to teach it, there's no way I'd wake up. But the
Yeah.
fact that we have people who, like myself, have work schedules where they're not off till like sometimes 7 o'clock or 8.
Yeah.
They can't make a 6 p.m. class. You know, that was always my struggle, was that when I worked in the movie theater, sometimes I'm going to work till like noon or 2 o'clock. I get off at like midnight or later, you know,
Yeah.
or earlier. You know, so it was like, well, it's like 8 a.m. and I'm just, you know, getting back from work.
Right.
And because I did a lot of tech stuff where I was doing maintenance on projectors, you had to do that when the theater wasn't open. And yeah, so I eventually started teaching just boxing and kickboxing over there. Had no interest in jiu-jitsu at all. I was like, I'll come back, but they didn't have a jiu-jitsu program yet.
Interesting.
And then once it became UFC, they're like, we have to have a jiu-jitsu program.
Yeah.
Like, we have to have one.
Because they had the mat.
Yeah. And it's a UFC gym.
Yeah.
Right. Even though it was more cardio based and all that.
Yeah.
We didn't have any fighters really out of there.
Definitely not.
And
It was all just like soccer moms and
yeah.
you know, fitness people.
Yeah. So they approached me with that, like, "Hey, we want you to do a jiu-jitsu program." I was real apprehensive about it. I was like, I don't know, last time I did one for you guys, it wasn't very good, you know.
Dude, you got bitwise.
Yeah, right. And so they're really wanting it. So then it was like, well, like anything with jiu-jitsu, there's a little bit of the culture thing. And so I checked with Steve, because he's my coach. I'm like, "Hey man, they want me to teach jiu-jitsu over there." And it started off, he goes, "You know what? I'll be okay if you teach no-gi, but no-gi stuff right now."
Oh, okay.
So I was like, all right. So we had a,
And that's because you were.
he just wanted to watch out for me too. He didn't want us to start like getting these guys promoted.
Yeah.
And then
have people kind of like
Yeah.
put shade on you.
Yeah,
That's
so-
that's a sick move.
so I was like, okay. And then I think we did no gi for like 3 or 4 months. And then at one point, they're like, "Hey, well, these guys want to start doing the gi.
Yeah.
Can you do it?" So I was all, let me check with Steve.
Yeah.
And then Steve gave me his blessing. So he was like, "Yeah, you know." I was like, you know, if we get these guys promoted, we'll probably do it through. He's with Clever at the time. I was like, we'll try to figure something out
Yeah.
and make it equal because UFC didn't have anything stood up yet.
Yeah.
And
Man, at one point they started getting their own gis and stuff.
yeah.
I was like, what the hell?
Oh, and then they're like, "Oh, you have to wear our gi."
Yeah.
I was kind of like,
And it was an on the mat gi, OTM.
yeah, it was, huh? Yeah.
So it was like, I remember I didn't know anything, but I talked to someone that trained at Halo, and they're, "Oh, that's a good gi."
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, it's like, how
Yeah.
much were they?
I don't think they were too
They were like
expensive.
90 or something.
Yeah. So they were
pretty
decent.
good.
I just don't like all the logo stuff. I've always been pretty
Yeah.
like kind of plain. Like even my gear right now, like the embroidery is the same color as the gi. You know, I kind of like it just kind of clean. Yeah. The only reason I've always worn a tama, and the only reason why, and Bernard's kind of like joked about it too. When we first trained, that's what Tosh sold was a tama. So the first gi I had was an atama.
Dude, I gotta try one of these.
And I didn't know any better.
Super soft.
Yeah. And you know, I'm just creature of habit. So I've never owned a different company. I've always just had atama gis. Even when I was doing judo, they started making judo gis also. So I had a atama judo gi, a couple of atama jiu-jitsu gis, which is just the cut slightly different. But yeah, once we started like the actual jiu-jitsu program over there, it did pretty well. That's when I met you, and we had some pretty cool people in there who were they're good.
Super good people that I've honestly revisited later in my life.
Yeah.
Some of them still train.
Yeah. Lamford was in there.
Lamford's
the first person I was rolling with him one day. Yeah, we were rolling in class like we always do. And I'm watching somebody else. I just gave him too much opportunity. I was like, I always try to put myself in bad positions because who learns anything from an ass kicking every day? We're just like, oh, I'm not gonna roll with this guy. He's just gonna fucking manhandle me. It's not. I don't know. To me, it's not as fun. I like to kind of roll and play a little bit. And, you know, that's the way I get better at escaping too. Is if you
being in those horrible positions, and finding hope where there's no hope. Dude.
Yeah,
that's all it is.
I remember watching a Kurt Oziander video where he's like, yeah, my students choke me out. He goes, dude, you play with snakes, you get bit. Yeah. I was like, dude, that's like, he's like, if you're an instructor and your students aren't learning, then they won't tap you. But when they start to tap you, they're paying attention.
Exactly.
So I looked at it way differently then. I was like, oh man, like I want these guys to like catch me and tap me out. And doesn't matter what belt they are.
First time I tapped Randy, I was like scared.
Yeah.
And then like I looked at his discretion, and he was like totally like almost like happy. He was like, that was really good.
Yeah.
He's like, I want to show you what you could do also, and I was like, whoa,
yeah. So like when Lamford caught me, it was funny because I look at the clock. I was like, oh crap. Like there's way too much time. I can't just write it out. Just over a naked choke, he had my back, and I was just fucking around too much, and I was looking at everybody else, where they were.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh no, this is in. Like this isn't even like I let him get like this is just in.
He has those big arms.
Yeah.
He was like
super athletic but controlled. Yeah.
Like not like slow, but like he was patient with his movements.
Yeah.
And when he grabbed you, you went that way.
Yeah.
That's just how it went.
I just remember also I'm trying to get my hands in to block the choke. I was like, oh no, like this is in.
Yeah.
And I went from that like, okay, I could get out of this to like, oh, I can't get out of this at all.
Yeah.
And I remember looking at the clock and I was like, yeah, I just have to tap him. I tapped him. It was the same thing where he's like, oh no. Like he wasn't sure what I was gonna do. And the first thing I did is I looked at him, I fucking gave him a hug. Nice. I was like, that's awesome. Like you legit caught me. Like I was slipping a little bit by not paying too close attention, but when it came time to pay attention, I honestly was.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh no, like he has this in. Like there's no escape, Not
a person.
But after that, I fucking rolled him. Because you still want him to know a little bit, right? Just a little. But no, it was probably the coolest moment. I always told him about that. I was like, dude, that time you tapped me out was like, it was awesome, And
I don't keep up with him too much, but I think he's got a kid now.
Yeah, he's supposed to come back in. He moved just like maybe a half mile from here.
Oh, perfect.
So I still see him a lot.
You know who comes in every once in a while? You remember Carlo? He's a bigger guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was like my size, but just completely different.
Yeah.
He's been coming in lately, bro.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
He's a brown belt now.
Wow.
He's doing really good.
That's
bro.
awesome. It's cool seeing like all those people from back then.
Yes.
And that they're still going.
And then there's some girl named Pacheco who trains at Checkmat.
Amber, is it?
Amber.
Yeah.
Amber.
Yeah, I see her every once in a while. She'll pop in at Fleet Feet and we'll kind of chat. Yeah. No, it's always cool when you see. Yeah.
Yeah, and then who else? Who else do I see? There was this one Caucasian dude with like a lion on his chest.
Oh,
I see
shit.
him at 559 fights. He'll just be like in the audience. I'm like, oh, dude, but he was a fun role. Bro.
Yeah, I remember that dude. Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. I can't remember his name, but he was one of those,
like Armenian or something.
Yeah. Dude, we had great people in there. It was a ton of fun.
It was like no one was crazy rough.
Yeah.
We were going pretty hard sometimes, but we all knew it. We all
and we had such. I mean, the mat space was maybe right from here to the end of the mat right there. Yeah. It was super small.
Nothing.
Sometimes
we had to get comfortable.
Sometimes we'd use the boxing ring also.
Yes.
I remember some of the kickboxing dudes would be in there. I'm like, hey, we'll roll you for the mat. They're like, no, that's cool, dude. You can take the.
Dude, yeah.
But yeah, that place. I like the UFC gym. And then what happened was the dude with the glasses, Tony. He had his dad had some kind of medical thing, and it was funny because like, oh, I have to move to Monterey. I'm like, dude, fuck you. You have to move to Monterey.
Yeah.
Like, you have to move to one of the nicest places in California. But once he moved, Pete, who was the Hispanic guy, and he used to train. Yeah, he used to train over at Hoist Gracie with us back in the day. He was like one of the original guys that I trained with. And he was supposed to we thought he was going to take the gym over as manager.
He should have.
Then they brought some dude from like, I forget where. It was funny because I was just telling this story earlier today to somebody. Pete was on a conference call, and they're like, oh, we have the guy who's going to run Fresno. And Pete was like, oh, they're going to promote me here? Like, yeah, he's on the line right now. And some dude gets on the phone, and Pete's like, what the hell? I thought I was going to get the spot. And that's what we were all hoping, everyone who was there.
I wonder who it was, because didn't they end up just selling it to the, selling it for property because of the GB3?
Yeah, and I can't remember the dude's name, but yeah, he came in and then he was like, oh, you guys got to sell personal training and sell t-shirts and power bars. And
oh, no.
I was like, dude, I have a full-time job. Yeah, and Tony was cool because we still all did like a lot of PT.
Yeah.
But it was all like, he would talk to the clients like, oh, what's your goal? If someone was into running, he's like, oh, I'm going to set you up with David. If someone was into kickboxing, you know. Yeah. And the trainers we were all pretty aware of what our strengths and weaknesses were. So like if I had someone who's like, I could do cardio boxing and kickboxing with them, but like if they wanted to learn how to like fight stand up, I was like, dude, I could teach you jiu-jitsu, but kickboxing, it's not my realm. Yeah. I could throw you how to show a couple strikes, but that's it.
At best, show them how to get to the floor.
Yeah, so I'd send them off to someone else. And we found that a lot of the clients that were like, thought that was very respectful. One of their time, and two of like admitting like, hey, I'm a little out of my range. Yeah. You know, and if they had someone who wanted to learn more self-defense stuff, they sent them to me. If they were a runner, you know, they had a race coming up. Yeah. They'd send, you know, it's like we all had enough of our ego let down to like, hey, you know what? Yeah. As much as I wouldn't mind the couple bucks, I'm not going to do you a service, and I'm going to send you to this person instead.
I'm surprised Pete didn't do more jiu-jitsu. I remember he was a boxer.
He's a purple belt now.
He is, dude.
Yeah,
I rolled with him 2 years ago at PMA on the 4th of July. Yeah. They're having an open mat, and he did a fucking one of those stack submissions where you come here and then you lift him up. Yeah. And I was like, God damn it, Pete.
Yeah. Pete, it was sick. And granted, I haven't rolled with Pete in a long time. We'll talk every once in a while, like, oh, we got to get lunch, and we never have. We haven't connected in like so long. Yeah. But I mean, that guy, he was trading when I started, you know. He just had some hiccups along the way and, you know, other things besides jiu-jitsu have like taken a priority in his life. And he's like, I guess, pretty deep into PMA right now, like where he's like teaching a ton of classes.
He's doing so good. Bro. From what it looks like. I don't really talk to him too much.
But if he ran the UFC gym, I think it would have been, it was great when Tony was there. Pete was doing a great job, but you know, they're looking at numbers, and it was funny how much the numbers dropped though, because once they want you to start, I don't want to say harassing people, but like if you show up,
really want to push,
they want to push personal,
So I know what it's like working in retail.
And it goes from like, oh, my instructor's coming over to talk to me, to, oh, he's coming over to talk to me and to sell me something. Yeah. You know, it's like, dude, if in the conversation,
if you want to sell more, you got to like find out like, how is this person going to be here forever? Yeah. You know, that's how you think about it. Yeah. Especially when it comes to sport. I work in alcohol, so I don't think that. Yeah. So I definitely, you know, at best when I work, I'm just like, hey, good to see you again. You know. Yeah. Leave it at that. I don't like to promote.
I hope it's not a problem.
Exactly. Some people admit. Some people are like, hey, I'm sorry you have to see me again. I'm just like, hey, you know what? Like, it's great to see you. You know?
Yeah. At least we're having this conversation that you kind of see that you're here too often.
Exactly.
You know, that was like, I used to, you know, I was never like hardcore drinker, but I would definitely go through my phases. And for me, it was like, if I would go to like our regular bar, they'd hand me my drink. When I walked in, I was like, man.
It doesn't feel right, but it feels okay.
Yeah. Thanks for the White Russian, but the fact that I didn't have to order it, you already like had it on tap when I came through. Maybe I need to come a little bit less and do a little bit more.
Right.
But I wasn't doing jiu-jitsu at the time either, so.
So what? I was gonna get into running with you.
Yeah.
What would you say is your best? What was your favorite run you've ever ran? One that means the most to you.
You know, my first 100-miler was up in Marin County, Headlands 100, and for 100-milers, I'd definitely say that one because that was my first one. I had no idea what I was doing. I remember the best point of that run, I'd met my friend Kyle at a 50-miler up in Sacramento, the American River run. And him and I see each other. We're like, hey, you're from Fresno. Like I knew him from the store that I work at now. We both work together now. And at the time I was just in there like buying stuff a lot. And like, oh, cool. You know, what's your goal? Like both of us, it was our first one. We just wanted to finish, and that was it. And we're like, oh, maybe we'll run a little bit together. We ended up running the entire thing together and just hanging out for like 11 hours or whatever it was, 10 and a half, 11 hours. Then at the end of it, he's like, so what's your next goal? I was like, well, I might do a 100-miler. So the hundreds, they'll let you have a pacer. They'll let you have someone come in the second half and just run with you.
Interesting.
Just to make sure. It's more for safety.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot of running.
And sometimes that far into it, you're like 20-something hours in.
You kind of lose it.
You're not thinking as sharp as you were at mile 10, right?
Definitely.
So he comes in, he's like, yeah, I'll run the second half with you because you'll be going slower anyway. I was like, all right, cool. So we become friends from that. But the thing at that race that like really struck me like the hardest, I never ran more than 50 miles. He meets me at mile 50. It's a 25-mile loop, right? So we're doing these 4 loops.
Right.
My parents are out there and they have a hotel and my mom's looking super worried. We're headed out at mile 50.
How were you looking?
I was okay. Like I was definitely tired. You know, I'm in a new territory, a whole new like spectrum of, you know, what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I'm changing my shoes at the car and just kind of loading up my hydration bag. And then I could hear Kyle talking to my mom and she's just like super worried. You know, it's like about to get nighttime now. We're going to like a whole nother realm, new realm of mileage, new realm of like, it's just pitch black. All we have is headlamps and we're in the like kind of middle of nowhere area.
Yeah. Were you scared?
You know what? I wasn't even thinking about it yet. And here it comes. And I hear Kyle, whoa, don't want to go there.
Oh, that's right.
Stall, just take it. It's like Predator, just kill me. But we're heading out and, you know, I hear him tell my mom like, hey, go back to your hotel, just relax, like, you know, come back at 7 a.m. We'll still be out here. And as we're walking, he goes, hey, think about this. He goes, what's the longest you've done? 50 miles? I was like, yeah. He goes, from now on, every step you take is a personal best.
Yeah.
He's all, if you finish this or not, every step is the furthest you've ever gone.
Already passed yourself.
And it was a crazy thing to wrap my head around. I was like, shit, he's right.
Yeah.
Every step is like new territory. So whether I finish or not, like I've gone the furthest I've ever gone.
That's
and
dope, man.
And it was crazy. We finished. I mean, there was one point, you know, I was still new to everything. There wasn't a whole lot online yet. Not like now. You could look up training programs and all that. And at one point, we're on that third loop, and I'm like, man, when we get to the top of that hill that I've been on for times already, I'm gonna take a short little nap on that couch. I was like, who put a couch out? Like, how does someone put a couch out here? I'm just like, right, like this doesn't make any sense. Why did they put this out here? And then I realized that my eyes were closed. You ever fall asleep with the TV on?
Yes.
And you start to like dream about what's on the
front of
TV?
you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
like the audio. So I realized my eyes were shut. Or climbing uphill, I kind of like do one of these, open my eyes, like, oh no, I'm falling asleep. So I tell Kyle, I go, dude, I can't stay awake. It's
So you're
like,
falling asleep while you're running?
yeah, which I didn't think you could do, you know?
the hell?
We're like a good,
That's nuts.
probably 70 miles in almost at this point. I'm like, oh no, like this isn't good. So then he's like, well, what do we do? I was like, I don't know what to do. Like shit, we both don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Then we get to one of the aid stops, like every 5 to 7 miles, there's like a spot where you could fill up your hydration and get food. So I was like, dude, I'm having a hard time staying awake. And like, do you drink coffee? And I was like, no, I can't fucking stand coffee at the time.
Yeah.
He goes, well, here, I got some Mountain Dew. So I took 2 cans of Mountain Dew.
Nice.
About 15 minutes later, I'm like running, I'm like wide awake, right?
Good old dude,
All the
man.
caffeine. And so then we figured out, okay, every aid station, we're filling up on Mountain Dew, you know? And so that became the thing, like just making sure I have enough caffeine.
Yeah.
Later on, what I would do is, what I still do, every week, usually about 10 days before a 100-miler, I detox from caffeine, so no caffeine at all.
Okay.
And then I sleep really well that week because I get a little tired. Oh, sorry. And so I'll detox from caffeine. And then at the race, I don't have any caffeine until the nighttime. Until I start to feel myself like nodding off a little bit,
Yeah.
then I'll introduce caffeine. It's usually Dr. Pepper's like been my go-to.
Yeah.
Kale and I always like send each other like Dr. Pepper memes and stuff like that. And yes,
My last interview question was obviously. I was gonna ask you why
Yeah.
Dr. Pepper.
Yeah.
Why Dr. Pepper?
Yeah, you know what? It was something that I had, and it worked. It was
And it just stuck with you.
yeah, for a long time it was Mountain Dew or Dr. Pepper, sometimes Pepsi, but Dr. Pepper just has that whole. I don't have any soda for like 2 weeks before the race, and man, when it's cold, you're like
Cherry.
65 miles in. It's like, oh my God, this is the best. And I'll get the 16.9 ounce bottles. They fit in my hydration vest. So
Soda on the go.
yeah.
You're like one of those Olympic athletes that are sponsored by McDonald's right now.
Dude, I used to write Dr. Pepper so much and tag him and stuff like, when do I get a sponsorship? Like, come on, man.
I'm surprised they haven't hit
I
you
know.
back up. Must be doing good.
Yeah. So it's been my favorite 50K. It's up in Woodside, California. And that course is that was the first ultra that I ever did. It had a rude awakening. I thought I could run it like a marathon.
Yeah.
Thinking it was just on the road, even though it was trail. At the time, my marathon time was about like 3.5 hours, 3:25-ish. So my parents are worried because I'm just like, I'm going to drive up that morning, run it, and come back. And then Mom was like, well, why don't you let us drive you up there so you can sleep, do the race, and you can sleep on the way back. So I was like, all right, sounds cool. She's like, how long is it going to take you? I was like, well, my marathon time is like 3.5 hours. It's only 5 or 6 more miles, maybe 4.5 hours, maybe 5 if I had a horrible time. It's about 6 hours and 15 minutes later when I come to the finish line looking like shit, because trail running and road are like, it's not even the same thing.
It's like different on your calves and stuff.
Yeah,
Your
the amount of
foot's not gonna land.
the amount of calories that you burn.
Really?
It's just like
How many calories do you think you burn in one of your average races?
like for the ultras, I mean, I would take, and you're always at deficit pretty much. And you figure every 5 miles, I'll probably have taken maybe, if it's hot being like over 75, 80 degrees, at least 2 bottles of electrolyte drink that are about like 12 to 14 ounces. And those are probably, so that's probably like almost 300, maybe 200 calories in like electrolyte, depending.
Damn.
At least every hour I'll take, or every 45 minutes I'll take a gel, which is like 100 and...
And I feel like all of that is just basically to keep your brain going.
It is, yeah. I'll take BCAAs, just for like mental clarity, muscle fatigue. I'll take that, and I'll for that stuff too. I'll have the gels. I have my watch beep every 45 minutes.
Yeah.
To remind me to take one.
I've used those. Those are really good.
Yeah.
Sometimes when they have caffeine in them too.
Yeah.
Very
So like
good.
with the gels, I'll make sure I take non-caffeinated ones. The beginning of the race. Then the second race, I'll have a bag that I have all the caffeinated ones in.
Yeah.
And I'll plan my bags too. So you usually have drop bags. So like at certain mileage, you'll have a bag that you could put out, and I'll have them planned out. Like, okay, mile 20, it's this one. So that way I could go up. Instead of having just like a bag of stuff, I'll have like a Ziploc. It's like, oh, okay, I'm at mile 10. This one says 10, and I'll load my stuff up because it's just one less thing.
You don't want to think it all when you're doing
Dude,
that.
I
You just want
I
to feel
can't.
it.
Yeah.
You just gotta feel it on you and just muscle memory.
Yeah.
That's dope though.
Yeah.
It's like probably like being a Marine or something. At some
Yeah,
point, you know? Like, that kind of training.
So it's funny, I went back to, I had a good friend pass away who was a race director, and the last time I saw him was at that race, at the Woodside race. I'd done it a bunch of times, and I was shooting to do my first sub 24 100 miler. Like under 24 hours is considered like good for a 100 miler. Like if you could break 24, that's like okay, like you trained, right? And he's looking at my race times. It was like 25 and some change. And I talked to him before that race. He's like, I think this is going to be my first sub 24. So I see him back up at Woodside where that 50K was. I think it's like the 3rd or 4th time I'm doing it. And he's this like Russian dude, tough as shit. He's like, David, give me, with this accent. He's all, why? I saw you, you didn't break 24. Like, what happened? And I'm like, I started getting blisters and my feet hurt. I did a lot of stuff wrong. And he looks at me dead in the eyes. He goes, next time you're that close, I don't care how bad it hurts, you finish what you started.
Yeah.
It's like, all right. And he looks at me and goes, the next time you run 100, it's going to be under 24 hours. I was like, yeah, I'll try to. He goes, no, look at me. The next time you do it, it's going to be under 24 hours. So I was like, okay. He goes, I don't want you to try to do it. Like, you're going to do it. I was like, all right.
Dude, fuck yeah.
Then there's this horrible accident with,
scary.
and he is a super cool dude. And, so one of the few people that like I said, I really respected his opinion, on things. And there was a horrible accident. They were in Death Valley. They were mapping out a race. He went off course. He got caught in the middle of Death Valley and died. Yeah. He made it to the roadside. He was dehydrated, and He passed away. So I always remember my last conversation with Michael was,
Yeah.
you have to break 24 hours. And we have this, like kind of, yeah, not
he
quite.
literally ran to death.
Yeah.
That is awful.
Yeah.
I was very sad, but that's
Yeah,
probably the
but
most hardcore
and
way that guy.
and it's him going out and doing what he loved doing.
Yes.
So I have to look at it that way.
Yes.
And so we have like not a funeral, but like
What's crazy too is like he probably didn't want to stop.
no,
He probably didn't want to
Yeah.
stop. He probably just kept going.
yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah. And so we had this like kind of service forum up in the Marin Headlands area where I do that 100-miler, and we all kind of got together. My friend Katria was there, and her and I were talking about Michael. I was like, man, the last time I saw him, we were talking about, you know, my 100-miler, how I did it break 24. She's like, there's one in a month and a half. It's super flat. It's a 2-mile loop. If you can't do sub 24 there, like you won't be, like you'll crush it. So I was like, all right, so go out. Her and I run a lot of it together, break 24 hours, and I was like, you know, felt like he was there the whole time with me, you know.
Nice.
And but for some reason, for a long time, I never went back to Woodside because that was the last spot that I saw him and talked to him, right? And so then I start planning, like, I'm going through a divorce and everything, and like, you know what, I'm gonna go back out to that race and just kind of like get some closure, you know, with this guy. And so I'm training super hard. I'm like, I'm gonna run like my fastest 50K. The course now I know is actually pretty easy. That first time I did it was hard.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know what hard was.
Yeah.
You know, I'm doing like,
You were breaking it in.
it's like first time in jiu-jitsu you're rolling with the white belt, you're like, oh my God.
Yeah.
It's like, no,
Yeah,
there's
from the
also
first round.
blue and purple and brown.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't hard. This is just your first intro to what you think is hard.
That's why it's the hardest.
Yeah. And so we plan, I take like, I think there was like 8 of us that are going. And I usually would drive. Well, I didn't drive up because my car couldn't hold that many people. So my buddy's driving. And one of my friends who crews all the time for me, I'm in the front seat in shotgun. I ask him, hey, is my bag back there? My hydration bag? And the way he said, he goes, the red and gray one? Like, I thought he was looking at it. He's like, the red and gray one? I was like, yeah, the red and gray one. So I go back to sleep. We're driving up early in the morning. Then I hear this like wrestling in the back of the car. He's like, no, dude, it's not here. It's like, what do you mean? He goes, your bag's not here. It's my hydration bag with everything.
Yes.
I have it packed for the whole. I was like, I'm not stopping at all for this 50K. I'm just
Dr.
gonna.
Pepper.
Yeah, no, I had all that, everything in there.
Yeah.
And yeah, so he's like, it's not back here. And everyone, it just gets quiet in the car. I look at the time.
Because nobody probably has enough to like.
No.
They've just.
Yeah, they have themselves. Yeah. And right then, my coworker texts me. She's like, hey, good luck on your race. When you get back in town, we'll We'll go get dinner, go get a drink because you're gonna PR. You're gonna have a great time. It's like 3:30 in the morning or 4. I text her. I go, I left all my stuff at home, and she's like, oh. I was like, there's not enough time to go back. And at this point, I'm like, and she's like, you'll figure it out. And it's like, and the thing is like, they had aid. It was like mile 5, mile 10, but then mile 20. I was like, I could get 5 miles and muscle through this.
Yeah.
And just like get whatever I need every 5 miles, but I can't. The 10-mile section, it says switch back, you do a loop, then you have to climb out. And when I first did it, that was where like I just like
gassing.
yeah, because the climb up is like it's probably like just over 1,000 feet of elevation gain over like about a mile and a half or 2. I think it was like 2 miles, but it's just continuously up. I was like, dude, I'm gonna like I can't do it. Like I know I can't do it. Even in good shape, I know it's not gonna be doable. So. She's like, you'll figure it out. I'm like, dude, I'm not. I was like, thanks for the confidence, but there's no way. And so then I'm like, you know, maybe I'll just go down to like the 35K, or maybe I'll just volunteer. You know, I'll weigh all my options. Well, then I remembered one year at a 100-miler. No, it was a 50-miler. I was scoping out. So Headlands 100 used to have a 50-miler and a 100-miler on different days. So I went out the first time in the 50-miler to scope out the course. Well, my hydration pack, I was having issues with it. And I remembered I went back to my car at mile 25. I was like, I have to have a bottle in here somewhere. I had no running bottle, but I had like a 16-ounce bottle of soda. So I was like, I'm just going to drink it and I'll fill it up with water. So I'm just going to carry that bottle. So I started thinking, I was like, man, at that race, you're on 25 miles unprepared with the soda bottle. So like, you could do that for 31. Damn. So then as we're driving, I told my friend Travis, I was like, hey, pull off at this gas station right here. He's like, what are you gonna do? I was like, just pull over. So we pull over. So I go, fill it with gas. Here's my card. I'm gonna go run in there real quick and get something. And they're just like, man, this guy went from being in a kind of a really like, oh man, kind of mood to also I'm like, hey, let's do this. I know what I'm going to do. And they're like, what are you going to do? I was like, just let me run the store. I come out with 2 Mountain Dew bottles, 2 16-ounce ones, and they're all, what's that for? This is for after the race. I'm just going to carry this during the run.
Dude,
And they're just going to take a Mountain Dew bottle. I was like, yeah, we'll be fine.
For after.
Oh, I had one for after, the one before. So
okay. I thought you were like both like
no.
for after. I was like, damn,
I drank,
double encouragement
yeah,
for after.
no. So I drank Mountain Dew the first 10 miles. And then when I got to that 10-mile aid station, I filled it up with whatever electrolyte drink they had.
Yeah.
So I just used it as a like a grab-and-go bottle. And it was funny because so at this time I'm already working at Fleet Feet, a running specialty store. I see one of our tech reps there. He's like, "Hey, Fresno." I was like, "Yeah." Then he sees I don't have a hydration pack. I don't have anything. He sees this Mountain Dew bottle. He's like, "Are you running with that?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Dude, that's fucking hardcore." I go, "No, this is on accident. Like, this isn't by design at all. This is like pure necessity, you know." And as like the cool thing is, I had this like lofty goal of like 5.5 hours to finish. Now it doesn't matter what I do because it's going to be a cool story.
Yeah.
I ended up running like 5:05 or something like that. Like I totally smashed it because I had nothing holding back. I was like, dude, if I burn out,
You got rid of your comfort, dude.
Yeah.
You were just like, if
Yeah.
I finish.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it was just one of those like, if I run a bad time, like I left all my stuff at home. Who cares? I have like my
Your
mental escape is like
oh,
there.
You guys run with stuff? I don't.
Yeah, and I ended up running my fastest time. There's a funny video where I used to carry my GoPro camera on all the runs and document them. And I was like, well, I'm not going to carry the camera because it's just one more thing that I have to carry. It's usually in my bag. And so there's a video of my friend Kelly. He ran like the shorter distance. He's like, yeah, you know, if all goes to plan, Dave should be coming in around about, oh shit, there he is. And I'm just like running through. And he's like, man, I thought you were going to be for another like half hour. I was like, yeah, I just had a really good day today. And it was cool because like that whole last part, like I was just thinking about how like the last time I was there, I saw Michael, you know?
Yeah.
And it became just like a really cool, like remembering everything he told me, like, hey, even if it hurts, like you just have to keep going. Like don't stop, you know? Don't stop till you're done, especially if you have a goal. And yeah, it was just really cool to be able to go out there where I saw him last and just kind of do well, you know?
Damn, dude. That's an incredible story, man.
Yeah, that's the last time I got to run out there. They haven't done the race like really since then, where I've been free to go. But I'm kind of like, I don't want to go out there again because it was so great.
Yeah.
It was like such a great experience, but that course is like beautiful. It's like in a really rich part.
Where again?
Huddard Park in Woodside, California.
I want to go there.
Dude, the trail is so maintained. It's like a real economically well area.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they really there's so much coverage there. The first time I ran it, it was like pouring rain. There's times where we're running, we're like, I'm not even getting wet. It was like the canopy was like so thick. I remember looking at my GPS watch. This guy's all, that's not going to work out here. And there's times where I look at it, it's like no service. Like even leaving the park.
It's the trees.
Yeah, even leaving the park, my car won't pick up the GPS till I'm like about a mile out of the park. Yeah, it's just really cool.
Damn. So what do you usually eat before would you eat the same thing you would normally eat before a big jiu-jitsu sesh compared to running, or not at all?
Jiu-jitsu I don't eat as much just because there's too much. I know we were talking about it today, and I ate quite a bit before we came in, which I was just hungry. I was like, don't do it. But I was like, you need to eat something.
Yeah.
Usually jiu-jitsu I might eat like a cheese quesadilla. You know, running, if it's so ultras, anything over like a marathon distance, the nutrition's way different. I'm eating like way more solid food during the ultra. If it's like a half marathon, 5K, or like a road race, funny, I ran my best times, cheese quesadilla and a can of Dr. Pepper. Yeah, just usually about.
No vegetables, huh?
No, I'm like such an unhealthy eater. It's ridiculous. But my friend Corinne, who I used to work with, she was always like, healthy on the outside, you're probably rotten on the inside. Like, yeah, you're probably like 95% there, you know?
You're burning up something.
But yeah, I mean, when I did, so there's that time I did that 200 miler for We Defy. And that I did on the Headlands 100 course, and I just did it twice.
Dude, that course was awesome.
Dude,
when you were filming it,
yeah,
dude, I was like, you lucky son of a bitch.
If you're gonna suffer somewhere, that's the spot to.
Against the coast.
Oh man, it's so beautiful out there. And I've had so much. It's funny because on that course I've had so much like good races, bad races, mediocre. Like I've done a little bit of everything out there.
Yeah.
And for that race, I had the record for, and they're not doing the race anymore because the park has just been like hard to get the permits for.
Oh, I can imagine San Francisco right now.
Yeah, and but I had the record for consecutive and overall finishes, so I got 10 in a row. And it was just one of those races where I think after the third one, I kind of felt like I was done with it. It was the third or fourth one.
Yeah.
And the race director was like, "Oh, I think this is your race. I think you have like the most finishes." I was like, "Oh, that's cool." Then he messages me like a week later. He goes, "Oh no, there's some woman that you're tied with." I was like, "Oh fuck, I gotta go back one more time." So I'm doing this race in God, which one was it? Up in Cool, California, they have a 100-miler. I'm running with my friend Katra, and we were talking about what we had coming up, and it's like, "Oh, I'm gonna do headlands this year." I was like, "Oh, cool, I'll be out there too." She says, "Yeah, it's gonna be my fourth one." I was like, I looked at her, I go, "It's you." She's like, "Oh, you're the one who I'm tied with." She's like,
She probably like looks at you.
she's like,
"It's you."
well, yeah, she's like, I didn't even think of looking at your name. You have 3 finishes. Like, yeah. She goes, "Well, this is gonna be my last year because that's when 200-mile races started coming up."
Yeah.
And she thought this would be my last one because next year I'm gonna do Tahoe 200. So let's do the fourth one together, and then after that, we'll, it's yours. And yeah, so after I ran with her, tied her for the fourth one. And she was funny. She's like, "Yeah, but yours are consecutive." Like, she took a year off. So she's like, "That's kind of more impressive to do them in a row." Yeah. But she's a really great runner. You should look at. She's in her, like, I think, man, either 50s or 60s now.
Oh, wow.
Catcher Corbett. She's fucking cool as shit. She's all tatted up.
Is she from the Bay?
Yeah.
Dope.
You should look her up. She's an amazing person. Has a really cool, story. She went through drug addiction. Spent one night in jail, was like, "Fuck this."
Holy shit.
Ditched all of her friends, started running, and
Doing something else hardcore.
yeah. And now she's just like this well-known ultra marathoner. Does usually 100 miles like her short distance. She does a bunch of 200 milers and like she goes for like the FKTs, the fastest known time for like all these different trails and stuff. It's just remarkable.
She's a menace.
Yeah, and it was just funny when we figured out that we were both tied, and then I got my fifth one. And then, I don't know how we kept going. Then eventually, like, it's funny because for that race, I went through 3 different race directors that have, like, bought and sold the company.
Whoa.
Yeah, and each time I would go,
And I was like, "All right, this is Dave Thull."
yeah, basically, I'd show up and they're like, "Oh, you're the guy who they said we have to," because I got to a point where each race director was like, "Dude, if you could get 10 in a row, like, that would be awesome." And I was
Yeah.
like, "God, 10 years of doing this?"
Yes.
Like, I don't know, you know? And, yeah, when it finally happened, it was really cool.
What's your prep time for these races? How long does it take for you to get through, like, get ready for one, would you say?
If it was like right now where I'm kind of at zero, if I give myself about 3 or 4 months,
3 or 4
I could probably get back into shape again. It's a lot of it's muscle memory. That first 100 I did, I was wrecked afterwards. My ankles were all swollen. I could barely. It took me about like maybe 2 weeks to like really kind of start running.
Yeah.
And then there's a really weird mental part because I remember with some friends, they're like, "Hey, we're gonna go do like 8 miles today. Do you want to go?" I was like, "Yeah, I could do 8. I just did 100." You go 2 miles out, you're like, "Dude, I'm done."
Yeah.
And like going from like where you could do this like
Unlimited.
kind of remarkable thing
Yeah.
that you don't think you could do, all of a sudden like I can't even do 2. Like shit,
Fuck.
And but as I did them more and more, my recovery time was like less and less and less to the point where there was one year we did a 100-miler one weekend. The next weekend we did a fundraiser for I thought you were gonna go the other way. It's like he's gonna throw the other leg over. shows what I know. And then but yeah, we did a fundraiser for McDonald House. We started in Bakersfield, ran to Madera.
Oh,
That was like
okay.
125 miles. Then the next weekend we did, I think, another 100-miler. Then we did the Fresno Marathon the next weekend. Then I did one more 100-miler. It's like in like a 4-week section, I did a 100-miler, 125.
So what's up with your knees, man?
You know what?
You got some crazy
If you
knees.
have it's funny because, I hear all the time working at a running store, like, "Oh, running's bad for your knees." Like, well, bad running form's bad for your knees.
Yeah.
Running's not bad for your knees.
Yeah.
They've actually done a lot of studies where it's the opposite. If you're landing on your heel like that, you're stopping, that puts pressure on your knee. If you land on your forefoot to midfoot, you're taking a lot of that pressure off, and it's really not as bad. And we get a lot of people that come in, they're like, "Yeah, I'm running around, I'm going heel to toe." It's like, no, that's how you walk, you know? So every time your heel hits, you're stopping, all that trauma is going up the leg.
You're losing momentum.
Yeah,
probably.
yeah.
So how do you feel about those toe shoes?
I think they're not for everybody, but for the people that they work for.
Yeah.
You know, I had a conversation with someone the other day, actually just yesterday when I was at work, and it was the same thing. He's like, well, what do you think of minimal shoes? Like, I used to run in minimal
Is that what they're
shoes.
called? Minimal?
Yeah, it's like I used to run in minimal shoes, and I've ran in more high cushioned, and you know, they've done studies where it shows that actually the combination of the two is good because you run slightly different.
Yeah.
So you could avoid overuse,
You're using
injury.
different parts of your foot.
Yeah,
Impact.
even just like the height of the back of the shoe, they'll call it the drop. It's either 0 millimeters or 6 or 8 or 12. Just that will adjust how you land. And
Yeah, I've had some like Nikes that were emphasized on that back pressure.
yeah, yeah,
I like them because the press off,
yeah,
like if you use your heel, it actually helps you press off
Yeah.
and go further. So
yeah. And
that's kinda interesting.
if you change up your running gait a little bit, you know, you'll be less prone to injury.
Yeah.
But for me, I mainly, so I'll wear a Garmin watch every time I run. And I think the most important thing for me is cadence. So if you're running at 180 steps a minute, no matter how fast or slow you're running, you tend to land more on your midfoot to forefoot. So if you just keep your cadence at a decent rate, you shouldn't be heel striking because it's actually super hard to heel strike when you're running at 180 steps a minute. So that's one thing when we have people come in, I'll kind of see if they have a watch on. I'm like, hey, what's your cadence when you run? They're like, oh, it's like 150. I'm like, yeah, you need to like take shorter steps because you're overstriding and you're hitting the heel. That if you keep it at 180.
Damn, that's a good way to gauge it.
And the first time I read that, I was like, that doesn't make sense. If you're running like a 3-hour marathon or a 4.5-hour marathon, how do you still do 180 cadence? Like,
Yeah.
then I started thinking about like cycling. It's like, well, you have different gears.
Yeah.
And the car, your car, right? You watch the odometer?
Yeah.
Or not the odometer,
The I know what you're talking
what is
about.
it for when you
The
shift?
rev.
The,
Not the.
oh man,
We're stupid.
yeah.
We don't
The,
use cars here.
yeah,
we just
right?
run everywhere.
You know what I mean? But God, that's gonna drive me crazy. Not the speedometer.
It's the revving thing.
Yeah. Accelerometer.
Yes.
Yeah, there we go. I'm pretty sure that's it. Yeah, that's always
That's it
gonna
right now.
that's always gonna have that sweet spot.
Yeah.
No matter how fast you're going, you get into gear, so it's right there. So it's the same thing with running. It's how much power am I putting at that 180?
Yeah. Your comfortable speed spot.
Yeah, yeah. So you're keeping the same cadence. It's just adjusting the amount of power that's behind it.
Yeah. And then that's how you gauge what kind of tires you need.
Yep. Yeah. And sometimes, like the Fresno Marathon is a good example. There's one street that's like God, I wish the city would just fix it because it's just tore up.
Yeah.
So wearing minimal shoes on that road is not going to happen because it hurts too bad. There's too
Yeah.
many like rocks and
you don't wanna
divots and
keep looking down at that
yeah.
kind of stuff
So like
either.
on that course, I wear something that's a little softer.
Yeah.
But I prefer like the less shoe the better for me.
Okay.
I don't like things that are like super soft because that's just not my preference.
You like?
know?
Have you ever tried Thieves?
No.
Those kung fu shoes?
No.
They're super thin on the bottom. They're probably not good for running though because the bottom is rounded
Okay.
and it's for keeping
Oh,
balance.
okay. Yeah.
So it's like a balance tester. So when you're on your toes doing kicks and stuff,
Yeah.
when your foot rotates, you can find balance because it's like barreled
Yeah.
at the bottom.
Under Armour had a trail shoe that we carried at one time, and the bottom of it was actually like that where it was curved.
Yeah.
And their whole thing was, well, you should be landing in the middle anyway.
Yeah.
And it was like a bike tire.
Yeah.
And it was super crazy. We didn't sell a whole lot of them, but like the concept was
They're
like,
interesting because I've worn them for like working and working out and stuff, and I
Yeah.
went to stadiums in them, and you feel comfortable more on your toes because there's like an oomph where there wouldn't be.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
you can
yeah.
like be on your toes longer and stuff. It's pretty interesting.
that's cool.
But those are very thin.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to wear them everywhere. I used to be a server at
Oh, okay.
the Spaghetti Factory wearing them, and they were like super like carpeted on the bottom almost.
Okay.
And I just told my manager, yeah, these are non-slips, and she looked at the bottom. She's like, what the fuck? And I was like, yeah. She's like, yeah, you're fine.
Yeah. No, I think it is. Throw some water on the floor.
Yeah, but that's cool, man.
Yeah.
That's cool that you can gauge it like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's see. I'm gonna get to one more question. After I submit you.
Yeah, I was like, how does this choke feel?
Let's close it off with. I want to ask you one more jiu-jitsu question.
Yeah.
So you were here, obviously, when 7th Generation started with.
Yeah,
Bernard.
yeah.
How did that start? And what was your opinion on how it was going to take off?
Yeah.
And do you think that it today is what you might have predicted?
It was definitely what I was hoping. So it's funny, I was working at this gym where they did a lot of HIIT workouts, and I wasn't really loving it. You know, I was kind of in this weird kind of job transition. I quit the the movie theater industry, and was just working. When I first started working at Fleet Feet, it was like, hey, can you help out? They knew that I was salary, so I could kind of come and go a little bit.
Yeah.
And they're like, hey, can you work like 2 hours a week? We'll give you a discount.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, I'll get a discount on running shoes if I
yeah.
come in for 2 hours. And then it became like, well, hey, can you do a full 8-hour shift? Hey, can you come in for a little bit here and there? And then quit the theater because I just couldn't deal with it anymore. Once it went digital, I did more management, and I didn't really.
You didn't really like the work.
Well, you know, is when I had my own staff, when I ran the projection booth, I had a small staff. I can negotiate their salaries and all that. And
Yeah.
it was kind of like a real specified job.
Right.
And once that went away to digital, you didn't have to have the staff as much. They started doing cuts, and then I started doing more management stuff. And once I started seeing like how raises were given out to the floor staff, you know, these kids who are cleaning the theater, doing all the work, really.
Yeah, they're getting paid.
Barely anything. They're being treated horribly.
Yeah.
Some of the main management was just not what I wanted. It became like, is this the company I want to work for?
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I left. I didn't really have anything planned out. It was like, God, I just can't do this anymore. And then eventually, it took a long time. Fleet Feet became my full-time thing. But I was working at this gym, and the manager bought out the owner. And we'll put it this way, we had a staff of probably maybe 8 trainers there. I was the last one to quit. And it was funny because I was like, okay, well, if I quit, I got to do something else. Like, I need to still like make a little part-time money, because at the time, Fleet Feet wasn't quite there yet for me. And so I still needed like the side stuff. And I was at my parents' house doing something, and they're watching that show, The Talk, with like Sharon Osbourne and all them.
Yeah.
And she's telling this story about how, you know, she was in a job she hated. She was in England, and she's at this bus stop, and it's pouring down rain, and a car drives by and gets her all wet. And she's like, this can't be my life anymore. By the end of this month, something has to happen. And that's when she met Ozzy. Like, she kind of like manifested it, right?
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there, I'm like, it's like, dude, I hate this gym that I'm working at.
Dude, yeah.
It's horrible. And I told myself, I go, by the end of this year, this was like in November of that year, I was like, by the end of this year, you have to be out of there.
Right.
You have to figure something out.
It's good
like,
that you said that.
yeah.
Too, 'cause
And it was one
can't
of,
do that, you know?
it was one of those where I'm like, I have to say it out loud. And like, I
Yeah.
remember driving, I was like, you have to be out of this situation because
Yeah.
you're just fucking miserable.
Right.
You know? And then, then I'm like, okay, well, I've been doing like the steel mason, steel club stuff, and trying to figure out like, maybe I could do something with that. And Steve offered for me to do it at his gym, but
Oh, that's nice.
you know, his ceiling was lower, and the mace were kind of swinging stuff around, and I was like, oh, I don't want to accidentally hit like one of his ceiling fans, and he was a little bit more particular about stuff, and
Yeah.
then I kind of gave up on that. And then one day Bernard just calls me up. He's like, hey man, and I knew he had his jiu-jitsu program at John Cho's. He's like, I have too many people here now. Like, I need to open up a spot. Like, what do you he just asked, like, what do you think about that? I was like, dude, like that's awesome that your program's growing that much, you know?
Yeah.
And Bernard and I we've known each other for so long that I was like super excited for him. I was like, that's great that this little
One of
thing.
your friends is doing
Yeah.
what you love to do.
Yeah, and this little thing that you have is like too big.
Yeah.
Like, you need to move on.
Yeah.
You know? And he's like, yeah, think about finding a spot, you know? And then I think he came over like the next day, and I remember just sitting in the condo that my wife and I were renting at the time. We're in the kitchen, just like sitting at the table, and I was like, well, what do you want to do with it? You know, we were just talking about a lot of the experiences that we had with jiu-jitsu, and you know, like some of the times that I've quit, it was because, well, we don't say quit because I, took time off.
Yeah.
Right? Because you still come back. You're not quitting. But some of those times are just like, man, like I have 2 kids, and sometimes it's like, okay, I have so much money a month. Like, jiu-jitsu just needs to take a back seat, unfortunately. And maybe I'll roll with some friends at home on my mats at home. But like, I just can't,
Yeah, yeah.
can't do this.
I've been there before.
Yeah. And I remember one time, luckily with Steve, one of my old roommates was training, and he was like, where's David? He was like, oh, he's got stuff at work. And it was when, I was just kind of getting burnt out, and money was a little bit of a factor. And Steve calls me up. I remember it was a Wednesday. I remember this specifically because it was the one day that I had the evening off. Steve calls me up and goes, hey, how come you haven't been in class in like 9 months? And I was like, I'm just kind of busy with work and this and that. And he's like, is that it? I was like, too proud to say like it's a money factor.
Yeah.
And then Steve goes, well, I was talking to Isaac, and you said you just can't afford it right now. I was like,
called you out.
like, fuck. I was like, yeah. He goes, okay, well, you're teaching kids classes then every Tuesday,
Dude.
and I expect you here on Wednesday.
Yeah.
He goes, what nights are you off? I go, I usually off Wednesday nights. He goes, okay, well, I expect you here Wednesday. It's like, okay, I'll be there next Wednesday. He goes, wait, what day is it today? I was like, it's Wednesday. He goes, cool, I'll see you at 6 p.m.
Dude,
I was like, dude, I don't even know where my gi is. So I'm like,
Yeah.
calling my
But
mom.
you can teach it.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
that's not a practice.
But like, I'm calling my mom, like, hey, I think I have a gi at your house. If it's not clean, can you throw it in the wash for me? And she's like, oh, you're gonna start. My parents were happy. Like, oh, you're gonna start training. I was like, yeah, I kind of have to.
Dude, that's dope. Man.
But
that's such a cool story.
yeah.
I mean, I ran into a lot of people that stop training, and they usually just don't get back into it.
Yeah.
And I always tell them, like, especially now that I have mats, I'm just so like, like, hey, like, come through.
Yeah.
Like, my neighbor who got me into it took me to my first class. He doesn't train anymore. He's like a nurse.
Yeah.
I always tell him, man, like, when you want to, man, right across the street.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Because I never want that to be someone's like excuses, like they can't afford it. Because it's
Yeah.
like, what are you gonna do? Sit there and just tell yourself you can't afford it?
Right. So those are some of the conversations that Bernard and I had. Like, hey, like I remember when this happened to me, and he said, we've all had a lot of similar experiences where it's like, yeah, sometimes my times off weren't voluntarily like taken. It was like out of necessity of like, well, man, like my kids have stuff coming up, or my car needs to be, whatever. Like it's just not, and let's face it, there's some schools that like it's expensive,
Yeah.
and that was the one thing we talked about. Like, well, how much is a fair rate to charge? Like how much is it to keep the door open? Because at the time, Bernard, like, he has a full-time job. I have a full-time job.
Yeah.
This isn't my make it or break it. Like, oh man, we only have this many people signed up. Like, I'm worried about paying rent. It's like, no, I have a full-time job that I have health insurance and everything from. I'm lucky enough to have that.
Dude, that's dope.
So it's like, let's make sure that this is affordable. And that was the one thing that we really talked about. Was like, well, what's a fair price? What's everyone else charging? What do we feel is fair for what they're getting? And one thing that I've tried to tell every person that signs up, if you have some kind of thing come up where you can't make it and pay the month, you let us know.
Yeah.
And you come in and clean the mat.
Exactly.
Do something, but don't just stop. Like figure it out, and we'll have you help out with something else. And that was like the main thing. And then when he told me the whole premise behind 7 generations is to do enough good to last 7 generations. I was like, dude, that's like the coolest thing ever. And I'm very much into Eastern philosophy, so it's like, oh, I'm spitting all over your face right there. And get that on camera. But it's like, dude, that's so good to like do enough good to where you might not even, and you won't see it, And I think about Elio Gracie, who we have the picture of on the wall.
Yeah.
Like, if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't be here right now.
Definitely not. We'd probably be doing something way more boring.
Yeah, that's right.
Seriously, we'd probably be golfing. Who knows? What the fuck?
But like you think about like the outreach that one dude had
Yeah.
on so many people that come to every gym, But
A sick old man, a sick old Brazilian man who wanted to stop getting beaten up and shit.
Yeah. And then you think of all these little factors in life that have to do with this person meeting that person that like goes so far down the, like if that Japanese man didn't go to Brazil, admit them, like, we wouldn't be here, we wouldn't be having this conversation about that interaction.
Exactly.
And, so it's just like that whole concept of like doing enough to last that many generations is like, dude, that's like,
That's pretty intense.
and it was just one of those where we kind of had the, the conversation of like, if we're doing this for the right reason, it's going to be successful.
Yeah.
And that's just all we have to stick with is like doing it for the reasons that we originally planned. And it was great because I quit that job, and which was funny because then another gym contacted me. There's a boxing gym that wanted me to instruct over there because some of the people from UFC gym are going over there.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, you need to hire this guy. And I was like, I'll go apply. And then my interview was like, yeah, I've been told by 4 people I have to hire you.
Dude, that's cool that they recommend you though.
It was cool. Like they actually came into Fleet Feet. They're like, hey, there's this gym opening up and we expect you to go apply.
Dude, dope.
And it was kind of one of those like Bernard was gonna get his thing open,
Probably like 2016, 17?
18. Because 2020 was the pandemic, right?
Yes.
That was gonna be our 1 year. So we opened it 2019.
Okay.
So it was end of 2018. Right. And it's funny because then I was like, no, I'm just gonna go all in with Bernard. And I do that. And then there's one day I was it's hard for me to say no when someone asks you to like help them out. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna go by that gym anyway and just kind of check it out. And I walk in, the owner's there teaching the class, and there's like all these people in there. I'm like, are you the only one in here? He's like, yeah. And I was like, do you still need someone? He's like, yeah. I was like, okay. I'm teaching jujitsu from like 5:30 to 6:30. I could get here by 7. I could try to work at Fleet Feet at noon, so I could work from like, 7 to noon for you or 2. So I'm doing that and jiu-jitsu, and I found myself in this like horrible position of just like all this stuff, and then finally I was like, dude, I can't do this boxing thing anymore. And I felt bad. I left there, and I was like, I just need to focus on jiu-jitsu and in the store and getting. But I mean, it was just one of those like, I felt like Bernard's intention was right.
Yeah.
And I kind of felt like, man, if we stick with this, like, and just try to get everyone here to have that kind of mindset of like, it's not just about me, it's about the group.
Yeah.
And that comes into the whole, like, even as an instructor, like, and there's times where it's like, okay, I need to put myself in bad situations so that they could kind of like work
from it. Yeah.
But there's times where like, but they also have to learn what it's like to be smashed.
Yes.
So there's that give and take where it's like, there's days where I know, like with Josh specifically, like where I'm just like rolled on that guy. He's like, thanks, like I need that,
Yes.
And there's times where it's like, cool, I'm just gonna, let him get my back and work on my escapes, and because no one wants to just get smashed all the time.
And no one wants to smash all the time.
Yeah.
Unless you're just
that guy. But for me, it's like, it's always great to see people who you're training like pull stuff off. There's mornings where I'm like, my alarm goes off at 4:30. I'm like, do I really want to get up today?
Yeah.
And sometimes I don't roll as much with the class. I'll sit against the wall and watch. And there's times where I'm like, God, it's so early. Then I see someone catch someone in a move that I showed like earlier that week. I'm like, dude, that's why I showed up today.
Yes.
Like that's like the sickest thing to see.
Or you just hear someone tell you that they did that. You're just like, oh, fuck yeah. Dude.
Yeah. It's like I was watching Gunner's match. Not his last one, but the one before. Was it his fight to win?
Yes.
Yeah.
When he kept defending that rubber guard shit.
Yeah, and then the guy was going fruit and plata, and I showed him my reversal for it. And I watched it, I was like, oh shit, I think he's gonna catch that reversal. And he almost did.
He almost did.
Yeah.
The guy backed out completely when he started going for it.
And we were talking about that. I was like, did you get that? Did I show that? He goes, yeah. And I was thinking like, oh, I'm gonna pull off that move that David showed me. And like when Connor did his, like he got the armbar that I was like, do you want to turtle up?
Yes.
And dive over the back. And I saw, I was like, oh shit, he got the move that I like to do. And Connor was like, as soon as I saw it, he thought, oh, this is the move that David does all the time.
Yep.
And that's like the coolest thing. It was like when you see some good that you're doing actually represented on someone.
Like leaving it on someone.
Yeah.
And then someone picking it up and doing their own thing.
Yeah.
Exactly, dude.
One of my happiest moments was when I found out that you were signing up. Because I was told him, I was like, dude, he has to get his blue belt. We got to fucking get him his blue belt. I was like, he's been doing jiu-jitsu too long to be a white belt. Because you'd come in, I was like, dude, this isn't fair. Like, all these guys are like, oh, he's got a white belt on. I'm like, no.
I remember I trained at Halo before, because I trained at Halo once I left UFC gym.
Yeah.
And I was just like doing really good like work. Like I was just showing up, kicking ass, bigger people against me every time. The bigger people would want to partner up with me, like men.
Yeah.
I was like 16, and it got to the point where like I would ask them like, hey, like when are we gonna take the test? And I asked almost everyone that was teaching. They're like, oh, we'll let you know. Never let me know for 2 years, and I was just like busy with school.
Yeah.
And it just got to the point where my friends left because they went. My buddy Cole went to go train with Tangia in LA, and then my buddy Jasker just kind of was getting spotty. So I was like, I'm just gonna focus on school. I had like broken my fingers, and I was trying to learn musical instruments back then. And I was like, I want to save this for a little bit longer before I get completely fucked up. Took like maybe 2-3 years off, and then that's when I saw you guys on Instagram or something. DM'd, and I had no idea it was Bernard. And he's like, yeah, just show up. So I showed up, and then I was like, oh man, this is dope. And I remember I had like 4 stripes, but I took them all off of my white belt. It's like I don't know really the tradition, but I was like, I'll just I'll let him know where I'm at by him seeing. And I think I like did really good, and then he was like, oh okay. And then like a couple weeks later, I got 4 stripes. And I was like, okay, this feels like they're actually watching me. This feels like I have attention. Compared to just going to a class and just having people tell people what to do. So I just felt super comfortable, and eventually I was just like, okay, like Dave's here. I was like, what the fuck?
I remember you came into one of the morning classes, like, oh man, like this guy's back. And I remember telling Bernard, I was like, hey, like he's really good. I was like, keep an eye on him. Like he's gonna do like really good things. And I was like, if we could keep, I told Bernard, I go, I feel like he's bounced around a lot, but if we could keep him here, like he's gonna be someone who stays consistent and just like excels.
Dude, definitely.
And I was just like, dude, if we keep, I told him, I go, we just need to keep JJ coming and consistent, and he's gonna like work wonders, and he's gonna be a great part of the team, and
super fun, bro.
And you have been. I mean, now you're purple belt,
Finally, man.
And,
I love it, man.
Get
my ass kicked.
It was so cool to like, see you get it, and because it's like, man, there's like so much like of a backstory of like when you had your white belt and getting to roll with you, and then you coming in, and you know, it's awesome to see, you know, especially people go from like the very beginning, just like accelerate, and like especially like the, you know, like people who are just starting, like we'll take Tina for example in the morning class. She came in just so like looking unsure of her, like very like you know, and now she's just like walks in all like
she's got better cardio than like a lot of the women. Like not trying to bag anyone, but when I roll with her, she doesn't stop until she's like, and she's all wrapped up, you know. But it's good, man.
Yeah, just to see her confidence level is like amazing.
Yeah, she's a triangle machine, bro.
Yeah, she's gonna do her first tournament like a month and a half, I think.
Oh, dope.
Yeah, she signed up for one in Reno. So it's funny because she messages me like, "What do I need to work on?" It's like, "Oh, let's start working on this." And she's like, "Oh, I'm going to tournament. I'll scratch everything I said. We're going to work on this other stuff instead." Yeah.
Dude, she's good at, for someone at her level of white, she's really good at being in bad positions, which a lot of white belts aren't.
Yeah.
Which is what's gonna. I feel like that's what helped me become a blue belt, was just getting in terrible positions.
Yeah.
And like getting out of them and turning those positions into attacks.
Yeah.
Well, shoot, man. I think that's all our questions, man.
Cool.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I feel like I went through all of them in an unorthodox order, but
Yeah, that was good.
pretty good. How
Yeah.
long was that roll?
I don't know. I'm sweaty though. About an hour.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Well, shit, dude.
Yeah.
Thanks for doing this with
Yeah,
me, man.
that was fun.
Appreciate the time.
Yeah.
The talk.
Yeah. It was fun.
Good shit, dude.
You have to do it again.
We will, dude. We will.